My name is Ellen Walkinshaw and I'm Associate Director for Progression here, and I look after the Aspire programme, and I will have met already many of your sons and daughters. I've got with me Sarah Waters, Deputy Principal, and Toby Anderson, who is the Aspire and EPQ Coordinator, and they are going to be taking your questions. So during the presentation, if you've got any questions, please do type them in the text chat, and they will either respond to them in the text chat, or I'll respond to them, as many of them as I can, at the end of the session. We are recording this session, so if you aren't able to listen to it all, you will be able to listen to a recording, just to make you aware. Right, so what we're going to cover, first of all, really, what is the point of Aspire and how students will benefit from it, a little bit about the structure of the seminars. This aim, I suppose, of the Aspire sessions to encourage students to build an academic interest and be able to demonstrate it. We'll talk about EPQ, which is running a little bit differently this year. So I recognised as attendees were joining that some of you might have had sons and daughters through the programme before. And we are doing things a little bit differently for this particular group of Aspire students that I'm talking to now. And we'll talk a bit about work experience, making a university application, and obviously really importantly, how you can help. And as I said, there'll be questions answered as well. So the purpose of Aspire, as I'm sure you're more than well aware, the top universities are extremely competitive to get into. So Cambridge typically have 5 applications per place, Oxford again similarly competitive, and Russell Group universities approximately 6 applications for every place. And I think what's important to realise is that at Cambridge, although their stated offer for an arts-based, essay-based subject would generally be A star, there are many applicants who have those grades, go on to achieve those grades in the summer, but weren't successful at being offered a place at Cambridge. So I think we can deduce from this that competitive courses, whether at Russell Group universities or other top universities, do require extra preparation. Clearly, there will be also those that need work experience, and all courses really do require students to be demonstrating a genuine, idea of a genuine academic interest and knowledge beyond what they're doing in the classroom. So this is something that we've obviously had in place in college for a number of years now, this Aspire programme, and it develops and evolves every year. But underlying the programme is always this idea of getting students to be able to demonstrate an academic interest beyond what they're doing in the rest of their programme of study. So I think it's always nice to think a little bit about where our most recent leavers have ended up. So these 2020 university destinations are the destinations of students which have been in the same position as your sons and daughters are now 2 years ago. So this autumn, we had 179 students take up places at Russell Group universities. Our top 5 most popular Russell Group destinations this year, as you can see, were Southampton, Birmingham, Exeter, Nottingham, Bristol. And nearly all of the students that were applying to those universities successfully had been through the Aspire programme. Year on year, Southampton and Bristol are both up there in the top 5, and the others kind of vary a little bit from one year to another. We had another 66 students going on to other really top universities, and I do encourage students to try and move a little bit away from the idea of Russell Group or not Russell Group universities, and to think about the universities that we call competitive universities. So i.e. universities where there are far more students applying for places and there are places available, and those would include places like Bath, Reading and Surrey. We also had 7 students taking up places study medicine and vet science. No dentists this year, but that's quite unusual, though we normally have dentists as well. A lot of students also are interested, and you may have already had some conversations with your sons and daughters about the possibility of applying for degree apprenticeships. Now, we do have a whole nother parents event next term called Beyond Reigate, where we talk in more detail about degree apprenticeships. And again, the students will also have a lot of advice about these at Get Ahead Day next term. These are just some of the companies where students have been successful at securing place on really very competitive degree apprenticeship programs over the last 2 years. All of these students, without exception, I think, also held offers at Russell Group universities. So they were able to decide, they made a UCAS application as well, and they also applied for a degree apprenticeships, and they were able to make a decision once they had their university offers in, and they about apprenticeship offers. And I think certainly in the current even more uncertain climate, a UCAS application would be advisable for a lot of students, or the majority of students probably on the Aspire programme, even if they're also thinking about degree apprenticeships. So as I said, I'll talk a little bit about the programme structure. So Aspire seminars occur once a week. That's one period a week on students' timetable. And the beauty, or one of the beauties of Aspire, is that we don't have to follow a particular syllabus or specification. There isn't a qualification at the end of it. So we can tailor the sessions to really meet individual students' needs and interests. But we do follow a broad structure. So the first theme, we're talking about building an academic interest. So some students do arrive with a really clear idea already of what they would like to study at university, but most do not. So please don't worry if your sons and daughters are still unsure about what they would like to study at university. This is a big feature of the Aspire programme to help them decide what it is they would like to study. We then start to research higher education. So all of the Aspire classes have worked on putting together presentations on different Russell Group universities. And we're really getting them to try and think about what sort of universities they'd like to apply for. Can they imagine themselves in a campus setting at university, or would they prefer to be at a city university? They're using, we encourage them to look at all the different data that's available for them to use in a critical way. So not just taking league tables or what we call the TEF mark, the Teaching Excellence Framework marks of universities at face value, but really delving into the data that is there on universities and thinking in a critical way about which universities might be best for them. So that's theme 2, and that's sort of where we are at the moment. Theme 3 is about taking their interest further. So they've established maybe what areas of biochemistry or English literature or German culture they're particularly interested in, and it's getting them to think about how they can develop those interests. And a big part of that is the EPQ, which, as I said, I'll talk about more in a moment. And then by the time we get to Easter and after Easter, they are starting to think about actually preparing an application, so drafting a personal statement. Students are applying for Oxford and Cambridge. We've just been talking about this with students this week, actually, in the AHT cohort. If they're applying for Oxford or Cambridge, they will need their application pretty much ready to go off to those universities when they come back after the summer holidays in the upper sixth. And even if they're not applying to Oxford or Cambridge, but they're applying for other competitive courses, we encourage students to have that application sent off well before October half term. What's important for students and you at home to understand is that universities won't necessarily wait until the final UCAS deadline of 15th of January to start offering places. Most start to offer places as soon as the applications come in. So clearly it is in students' interests not to rush their application and make sort of bad decisions about their choices, but to get their application in as soon as they are able to optimise their chances of success. As I said, it is we're able to adapt this programme according to students' needs and interests. So if we get to theme 4, so after Easter, and there are still students that really aren't still sure what they want to apply for, we are able to still give them help and support with that. We're not going to try and force them down a route of writing a personal statement if they're not ready because they don't know still what they would like to apply for. So this building and demonstrating academic interest is really important for universities, especially as we have more and more students. The majority of students are only studying 3 subjects now. So they do need to do something that's going to set themselves apart from all the other students that are applying to these universities, also with excellent GCSE grades and excellent A-level and BTEC predictions. There are lots of resources, fortunately, that can help students, and lots of them are really inspirational. This is a slide that we've used a lot in Aspire. It's a sort of go-to slide that students use. They can click on the links and it takes them to a lot of really fantastic resources. Most of these you may be familiar with and some you may not. So TED Talks are fantastic for students, partly because, not least because, they can filter them by length. So if they just want to delve into something for 5 minutes, there are TED Talks that are less, 0 to 6 minutes long. They can search them by topic, by subject, whatever. The things that you may not have heard of or be aware of: FutureLearn is a platform for online university courses that are all entirely free. So I've completed several myself. The students find them really fantastic because they're very structured. So each week you get an email from FutureLearn with links to lectures. You don't have to complete any written work. You can take part in online chats and forums as part of the courses. But they're really fantastic and would be a good thing to talk about in an application to university. We have more subject-specific sites. So we have Access to the New Scientist. In college, students can log on straight onto the New Scientist and access the whole back catalogue. I'm afraid we don't have a way of them accessing it at home. So if they want to read articles and take them home, they need to either open them and print them off or save them. The FT, though, we do have free access to. Students can create an account in college, and then they'll have a login that they can use anywhere they like. Obviously, the Guardian remains free for all users online anyway. I would encourage students to download the BBC Sounds app, and then they'll be able to listen to programmes like In Our Time, or if they're interested in science, things like the Infinite Monkey Cage or the Life Scientific. All excellent BBC Radio 4 programmes that they can listen to. The Moral Maze would be another thing they might want to listen to if they're interested more in philosophy, the social sciences. A few others there that I haven't delved into, but and you can see are very subject specific. So the Lawyer Portal and the Medic Portal. Some websites like those, the Lawyer Portal and the Medic Portal, do have some paid for content on them. We have access to so many free resources. I wouldn't encourage students to use the paid for content. There's a lot of free content on those websites. So yeah, lots and lots of opportunities there. So some other ideas there. So as I said, journals and magazines. Obviously, in normal times, you might be able to go and students be able to be more free and able to go and visit places, and hopefully they will be able to go do that soon. Universities have been fantastic at turning their events into virtual events. And there are so many public lectures that they can access. So my favourite are the Gresham College lectures, and I know that some of your sons also have been looking at those as well. I've also told them about an event that's happening on Saturday, run by a charity called the Battle of Ideas. That's all about Black Lives Matter. It's a day of lectures. So there are lots of things they can do. Engaging with sort of the leading thinkers or celebrities that have an interest in their particular areas is a good idea as well. So we always tell students and remind them to stay safe online, but following, if you're interested in astrophysics, following somebody like Tim Peake, Brian Cox on Twitter would be a really good idea. I said lots of online opportunities as well, and just making sure they're keeping abreast of the news via broadsheet newspapers, or probably more likely an easy to suggest as the BBC app. So those are all things that we'd encourage students to be doing. Now, as I said, I'll talk to you a bit now about the extended project qualification, or the EPQ. So extended project qualification is an individual research project. It counts as half an A-level. All universities value it, okay? Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial will all value it because of the skills that it gives students. A bit more about those later. And as you'll see, some universities do actually make lower offers based on students having a top grade in their EPQ. Now, this is a bit that is a little bit different this year. And in fact, it's different. It might be different for students, your sons and daughters, to some of the other students that are doing EPQ in the college. This year, as obviously you're more than well aware, has been a different year. And we are trialling with this cohort of Aspire students completing the EPQ this academic year, whereas in the past, and for other students in Aspire this year, they have started work on it in the lower sixth and completed it in the upper sixth. I'll just talk briefly about our rationale for doing this. It is actually the case that in most other centres, EPQ is something that is done in the first year. The new starters work that's on our website this year meant that some students arrived already having given quite a lot of thought to their EPQ, and it was good for them to be able to hit the ground running with that. Completing the EPQ in the first year means that some students may want to complete an EPQ in the first year and an AS in further maths in the second year. I'll talk a bit more about that option later. It also means that for the very, very top achieving students who may well be thinking about applying for Oxford or Cambridge or medicine, vet science, dentistry courses, it frees up the autumn term of the upper sixth a little bit, because completing an EPQ alongside Oxford and Cambridge interviews, admissions tests and so on, does create, and often there are other coursework deadlines in history and English. That term does create a heavy workload in that term. So this is something that we're trialling for this year. So far, we have been, all of us as Aspire tutors, have been incredibly impressed with what called the project proposal forms that students have submitted, and I think it will work very well. But just to be aware, it is different, and some of your sons and daughters might have friends also on Aspire in the other cohorts who are doing it slightly differently, to a slightly different timescale. I think it's really helpful to look at some current projects and really interesting, because one of the most rewarding things about our job as Aspire and EPQ tutors is being able to see our students develop really kind of in-depth knowledge about a whole range of topics. I'm a historian, that's my background. And I enjoy supervising EPQ. I've enjoyed supervising EPQs on every, I think, topic imaginable. Here you can see we've got some more science-based ones, some with an economics slant, sort of a popular culture, English literature. We also, for most students, they do submit a dissertation, and it's a major academic undertaking. It is 6,000 words to write a dissertation. A lot, though, also a minority, but a substantial minority, produce an artefact instead. And these are some of the artefacts that we've had this year. So an artefact would be an actual thing in most cases. Sometimes it might be a podcast or something like that. They still have to go through the same processes that a dissertation does in terms of their research methodology and writing a report that is referenced and having a bibliography and so on. But their final product, instead of being an essay, is an artefact. So it's just a taste. We have over 100, so they were just a little sample of this year's titles. How the project is assessed. All projects must include a written report. If it's a dissertation, then that'll be about 6,000 words, but there is a written component to the artefacts as well. And again, the best part of the EPQ for us as tutors is when students give their presentation at the end of their project. And these, for the current upper sixth, are happening next week and the week after, and they are assessed on that as well. The assessment is taken initially, their EPQ supervisor will assess it. Then we internally moderate the work, and a sample is sent off to the moderator. And as you'll see from a little bit of the mark scheme I'll show you, the assessment of the EPQ is not just about the final project, but it is really about the process. I've been trying to explain to the students, and I think they understand this cohort, that when I'm talking to them about their EPQ, I'm talking to them not as a teacher, but as a dissertation or thesis supervisor at my university. So when I'm giving them feedback, I'm making suggestions rather than telling them what to do. And I think that's a really it's an important part of them maturing as students to understand that distinction. I said it is useful to know, and the students all the time we're referring back already to this mark scheme with students. There are 4 assessment objectives with the EPQ, and really it's just that one there, AO3, in the middle that is based on their actual essay or their actual artifact. The majority of the 50, slightly over half the 54 marks, are about how they've managed the process, how they've used sources, have gathered them and used them critically, and how they've evaluated their work. So I talked to said this is something, the EPQ is something that's really valued by universities, and some universities do make lower offers. Even if they don't, it will still be something they'll look at when comparing an application against somebody that maybe is applying without an EPQ. These are some quotes from university websites. I won't go through all of them, but as you can see from these extracts from university websites that universities are actually formally recognising it in their entrance requirements. I think even more useful than these are the Oxford, Cambridge, Durham and UCL are the universities that maybe won't offer, or they never have offered made a lower offer to students based on their EPQ, but they do still value it and see it as a positive part of the application. I think more useful than what universities say on their websites is to look and see what the actual reality of the situation is. This year, students are just starting to get offers from universities, and this is current data or current examples. There will be a lot more by the time we finish this process, but already just a few, again, it's a few examples. I just went into UCAS just the other day and pulled off what we call UCAS track, some examples of where students have been made lower offers. I think one of the things to note is that it's not just, you might think because most students produce an essay, it would only be essay-based admissions tutors or subjects, admissions tutors in essay-based subjects that value it. As you can see, we've got there computer science and AI, biochemistry, biology, biomedical sciences, being students being made lower offers based on their EPQ. So it is, it's really valued. So that's the EPQ. As I said, you might be, I think the most common questions that normally come up are about what to do if you're doing 4 A levels, and whether an EPQ is possible on top of 4 A levels. As with many things, there's not a simple yes or no answer. Yes, it is possible. So we've got a student currently in his first year studying biochemistry at Oxford who did do 4 A levels and an EPQ, and certainly I think it helped him because he was able to talk about his EPQ at interview, and it showed the admissions tutors that he could cope with a really heavy workload. On the whole, probably doing 4 A levels and EPQ is something we would advise students against, but in Aspire, we're not really, the work on the EPQ is mostly done outside of the Aspire sessions, so they will still in Aspire be researching an area of academic interest. It's just that if they're doing 4 A levels and they don't want to do an EPQ as well, they won't actually write it up and submit it as an EPQ. But I mentioned further maths AS, and this is something that students take in the upper 6th year. So by doing an EPQ in the first year, they could, in theory, also do further maths AS in the second year, which would lead to a very impressive set of qualifications on a UCAS application. Further maths AS has a much narrower appeal, and obviously than the EPQ, because it does only apply, and it's only really of use to students who are applying for a subject that has a high maths content, but who are not already studying, excuse me, further maths A level. So for instance, say you are studying physics, maths, and history, and you have decided that you would really like to apply for something like engineering at Imperial. Further maths AS is something that is definitely going to enhance your application. Other courses might be computer science courses, or obviously if you're applying for a maths degree, then doing a further maths in second year is something that we would really encourage students to think about. They need to get an A in their progression exam in maths, because obviously we're not going to add more and harder maths to their programme if they're not already doing well in their maths A level. And yeah, it's really a value for those applying for a particularly numerous subject, possibly economics as well, might be something they want to consider it for. And students are contacted about this in February or March time, so they don't need to sign up for anything yet, or they can express an interest in February and March, and then obviously depending on how well they do in maths in the first year, that's something they can consider as well. And it does work very well having that further maths AS cohort in the second year. So that's something else, again, about sort of extra things that they can have on their application. Experiences of the workplace in sort of old language work experience. This is something that obviously we're really lucky to have a work experience coordinator, Sam Burnett, who looks after work experience in the college, but we do talk about it as part of the Aspire programme as well. In previous years, because of something called the Gatsby benchmarks, all students have been told they should complete an experience of the workplace. This year, obviously, that is going to be really challenging. We still want students to aim to complete an experience of the workplace while they're with us at college, but it is obviously much more challenging. There are lots of virtual opportunities available, and they're advertised in the careers bulletin. If you are, you have sons or daughters thinking about health-related careers or teaching, so MVD stands for medicine, veterinary science and dentistry, it is really, really important to have a longer period of work experience. And yeah, that's why we are lucky to have Sam Burnett helping us with our work experience and securing work experience placements. It's advisable also in other vocational careers like law and engineering, or for courses and more vocational like that. And it's really beneficial across all sorts of areas. We do have some external organisations that can help. Clearly, we have, as you're aware, over 2,500 students in the college. So we're not in a position to be able to provide a bespoke work experience opportunity for every single student. Students need to be proactive about looking in the careers bulletin and seeking out opportunities themselves. But as I said, we do have some external organisations and we work with employers. I'll show you on the next slide. There is no dedicated work experience week. So unlike a lot of schools have in year 10 or perhaps in year 11, there is no week that we say students have to complete this. This is because you know, we are such a big we have such a large student body in the local community. Employers would be unable to offer, you know, opportunities in one particular week for all our students. We encourage students to take to complete these in the obviously holiday time or on structured learning days, but we do also authorise absence for students that have can prove that the work experience is really going to help them with their future kind of career choices or university choices. We are very lucky that we have a lot of parents that have been really proactive about coming forward and helping us to provide experience of the workplace. I realise that's probably the last thing most employers are able to think about at the moment, with all the COVID restrictions in place. But if it's something that in the future you think you might be able to offer, Sam Burnett would love to hear from you. Email those work experience at reigate.ac.uk. So yeah, just some of the employers that we have worked with over the last few years. Something that I'll mention from an Aspire point of perspective, UCL Muller Space Laboratory. Sadly, that didn't run last year because of the pandemic, but and every other year we've been able to send several students up to the Muller Space Laboratory based in Holmbury St Mary up in the Surrey Hills for a week's work experience, which really, really good for people, students applying for astrophysics, and those, you know, in related subjects. So yeah, those are just some of the employers that we've worked with over the last few years, and many of them are providing online opportunities now that they're not able to see students face to face. So as I said, the final sort of part of the Aspire programme in the first year is to actually get students to a position where they're ready to put in an application when they come back to college after the summer holiday. So they start looking at the UCAS process really early on. We obviously explain to them how to structure their personal statements, and we're really lucky that we have a huge bank of personal statements from students who have applied successfully to Russell Group universities for almost every subject imaginable, really. That they've built up over years from students that very kindly said we can use their personal statements as examples after they've left. And there are also a lot of examples on Unifrog, which I'll talk about later, but we've got a lot, so we use examples of successful personal statements. And in fact, in Aspire, students have already seen, I don't throw a whole personal statement at them this early on in Aspire because it's a little bit daunting, but they've already seen some paragraphs of examples of really good personal statements. Obviously, Aspire students will benefit from the general college careers programme. Coming up next term, we have something called Get Ahead Day, which normally we have over 100 employers and universities visiting us, which obviously we can't do, but it will include a virtual careers fair. And we have Progression Day, which is in the summer term. And clearly, you may well have sons and daughters that are on the MVD programme already. So for medics, vets and dentists. And yeah, again, there is other extra support for teaching, nursing and law. I spoke, or other Aspire tutors this week will have spoken to your sons and daughters about Oxford and Cambridge. The way I approach it is I say that I will speak to them about it now. I think I spent about half an hour talking to them about Oxford and Cambridge and using some clips from Zoom calls I've done with students we've got currently studying there. And then I say to them, I won't mention it again in Aspire, because some of them, I think feel that, I don't want to feel that we're pressurising them to make an Oxford application if it's not right for them. And then next term, if they are interested in making an Oxford application, then we do run lots of extra sessions for them. Again, normally a visit to Cambridge. At the moment, we can't do that, but we do have a virtual alternative plan. So there's lots of extra support for particular pathways. We have lots of fantastic resources. Many students are, I think, already familiar with Unifrog from their schools, and they all have Unifrog accounts. So I know that if you ask sons and daughters about their Unifrog account, they may look at you blankly, or they may have forgotten their password. They all have one. If they are looking at you blankly, they can go to Unifrog, Google Unifrog, go to the Unifrog website. Their username is their college email address, which obviously they all know, and there is a forgotten password link if they have forgotten their password. So they can all access it. Unfortunately, we can't get usernames and passwords for parents as well, but Unifrog is, and looking at Unifrog together, is a really good way of engaging students with progression planning. It's a very intuitive site. We use it quite a lot in Aspire. There's lots of really useful material on there. They can look at the course library and find out about different university courses, the entrance requirements. There are pieces of students talking to camera about what a day in the life of an architecture student or a chemistry student might be like. And also quizzes they can do. So if they're really unsure about what they would like to do in the future, they can do, there's the personality quiz, which is based on the Myers-Briggs personality quiz that lots of employers use. They can find out what sort of frogs they are. That might be a fun family activity. Everybody could have a go at the quiz. I'm something rather poison frog, which was worrying, but Michelle Obama apparently is also one of those, so I was okay with that. So Unifrog is a really good resource that they can use in college and at home, and if they will share their username with you, you can have a look at it with them. We also have the Aspire Moodle site, so all of the weekly PowerPoints and other resources are on Moodle, along with links to other useful resources. We have a fantastic careers department. They are located in the enhancement block. Fewer and fewer students really actually want to look at hard copies of university prospectuses, but we do have those available. Normally we say just pop in, but at the moment we have to obviously be really careful about mixing the bubbles. So students in the lower sixes, they would like to see somebody, particularly from the careers department, rather than just their Aspire to. So if they can email careers@reigate.ac.uk. The careers department are super, super busy at the moment because tomorrow is the deadline, our internal deadline for UCAS applications, and we will be submitting a record number of UCAS applications this year. So well over 900 UCAS applications are currently being processed. The careers bulletin is another amazing resource that students are emailed every single Monday. So I think a big challenge for students when they come from school to college is dealing with the email traffic. That's always challenging for them, but even more so, I think now we're using email more because of face-to-face being difficult sometimes. They like my son who's in the lower sixth, they'll be very excited by the daily email they get from Gavin in the refectory telling them what's available for lunch. But I would also encourage them to look at really seriously the careers bulletin that's emailed every Monday. And I know lots of them are, and lots of them are following up on virtual work experience opportunities and other opportunities that are advertised in the bulletin. You can view the careers bulletin on the website. So the most up-to-date careers bulletin is always on the college website, and it's updated every Monday during term time. I also was make a point of putting careers notices in the parents' bulletins that are sent home. So there are kind of lots of resources available. So thinking about you as parents and what you can do to help. As I said, and I am parent of a student in the lower sixth, so I know that sometimes students aren't always very forthcoming or really ready yet, perhaps, to talk about their progression plans, their progression ideas. And our fantastic head of careers, Carol Hicks, has a great phrase I might have shared with you at open evenings and things, that she always says they may not be ready to hear it yet. Okay, or they may not be ready to talk about it yet. So if they're not really ready to talk about what they might study at university, or they don't seem to have many ideas, try again, a different time of day and a week or two later, just be ready to talk about ideas with them. And don't worry if they don't know what they want to do yet. That's quite normal. Obviously, we do deal with lots and lots of students every year, and they are all at different stages on this journey of deciding what they want to do. I think the most important thing is that if they don't know what to do, they are actively doing something about that. So they are using their Aspire sessions to research different courses, and thinking about it. It's unlikely they're going to be walking down Reigate High Street one day and it's suddenly going to come to them what they should apply to at university. They do need to actively be kind of researching opportunities. It'd be really good if you could read our careers bulletin when it comes up on the website each week, and obviously encourage students to read it as well. They are emailed it every single Monday during term time without fail, and it's quite a long document, and as we know, that can be a barrier. In some instances it has hyperlinks, so they can use the hyperlinks to take them straight to whatever they're interested in, whether it is work experience opportunities or things to do with university applications. It's fantastic that you've all joined us this evening, and please do attend future college events and read emails that we send home, and information in the parent bulletin and so on. So as I said earlier, the next college parent event relating to careers will be the Beyond Reigate evenings, which are 26th and 27th of January. You'll be emailed about those. And that's a general, not Aspire focused evening, but a general evening to talk about different routes after college. The fourth point, I sort of hesitated about whether to put it in there, but really talking about obviously what you can do as parents, but really probably the best thing is to try and encourage them as far as possible to take ownership of the process themselves. So it should be the students who are researching courses, the students who are drafting their personal statements, and I think our role as parents often is to, as they try and encourage them to think about this, engage in this conversation. I'm sure you'll be helping with, hopefully, if they're able to visit universities in person with travel arrangements and lifts and so on. And I'm sure there will be in lots of families some discussions about finances. But the more we can encourage students to take ownership of this whole process in terms of researching courses, finding out what the entrance requirements are, working at their key assessments to make sure that they get the predicted grades that they're going to need to apply for them, really, really the better. But yeah, thank you very much. We have a really supportive parent body at Reigate, and we know that you support us and obviously your sons and daughters in planning for their futures, which is really great. I just want to say a little bit about well-being, because I think for the really most able students who might be thinking about applying for Oxford and Cambridge, medicine, veterinary science, dentistry, other really competitive courses, that is, I think, really important for them to know what support is available. And we do have Jo Driscoll, who's our Director of Mental Health and Wellbeing, wanted me to sort of just remind parents of these kind of sources of support there are for students. And do, as parents, also get in touch with your either your son or daughter's Aspire tutor or their form tutor if you've got any worries, because I think I know the audience I'm speaking to now is your parents of students that really are very, very have demonstrated their GCSE results, that they are very able, but with that can, I think, sometimes come quite a lot of pressure, so we are mindful of that. What next then? So as I said, the next events for parents are next term. We call them the Beyond Reigate evenings, and they will cover university applications, apprenticeship applications, and so on. We will also have an Oxbridge and MVD information evening, which will be the first week back after the Easter holidays in April. And that's specifically for parents of students that are considering applying to Oxford or Cambridge, or for medicine, veterinary science or dentistry, to give you a bit more information about what we as a college do to support students in that process, and also, again, what parents can do to help. So I think I can hear that Sarah and Toby have been tapping away lots of answers to questions that have come up in the text chat. But if there are any questions that we haven't been able to answer, or perhaps questions that relate particularly to your particular son or daughter, then we do have an aspire@reigate.ac.uk email, which you can use to contact us. That is really kind of everything that I've got to say for this evening. To say thank you again for attending. I hope it was useful. Keep asking your sons and daughters what they've been doing in Aspire, because hopefully they are finding it useful, and the more they can at home be talking about things they're doing, the better. So thank you very much. We'll carry on answering the questions that are in the Q&A, but I'll turn off the camera and the sound. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I'll just unmute myself if you're still there, just about the question about international universities. We do support students in applying to universities in America and also European universities. In complete honesty, we do not have the depth of expertise or breadth of expertise that we do supporting students applying to UK universities. So as I said, we support students applying for over 900 universities in the UK, or university applications in the UK. We do encourage students to use that are able to meet the widening participation criteria to apply for the Sutton Trust US scheme. There is also something called the Fulbright US sort of like advice program. There's lots of help and support. It's not going to be as sort of expert as applying for universities in the UK, and students will have to do a lot more of the work themselves. But yes, every year we do have students, and indeed actually former students, that do apply to university in America successfully, and we support, and other countries in Europe particularly as well. Okay. And yeah, we will make the because it's obviously quite a long presentation, we will make this available via a YouTube, the college YouTube channel after this evening.